Our series of sermons on tables heads into the home stretch today. Next week is our annual carry-in breakfast, and we will worship around tables in Fellowship Hall as we complete the series. This is the fourth sermon in the series, and we began by reminding ourselves that when we gather at tables, we get back in touch with who we are and whose we are because of the stories that are told around the table. Then we spend some time thinking about the people who we seem to sit with at tables and the old saying that we are known by the company we keep. Jesus seemed pretty indiscriminate in the kinds of people he liked to join at tables. Last week, we talked about the kind of manners that are expected at tables and the truth that the manners and customs and behaviors that we learn at tables, and especially at this table, inform how we live our faith day by day in the world out there. Today, we're talking about issuing invitations, how to figure out who to invite to your table. One of the most critically important moments in the success or failure of a dinner party comes long before the menu is assembled and prepared, long before the house is cleaned and the table is set, long before the shopping list is compiled and the wine is purchased. The make or break moment in the success or failure of a dining experience is when you decide who to invite to dinner. You know as well as I do that if you invite certain people to dinner, it's going to be a great evening, filled with enjoyment, lively conversation, and a genuine feeling of community around the table. Invite the wrong people, and the evening can devolve into arguments, ill feelings, ill will, and even a meal prepared by Julia Child would result in heartburn and indigestion. So when we get to the parable in Matthew's gospel, we find a story about invitations being issued and invitations being rejected and more invitations being issued and murder and all the kinds of things you would expect in an Agatha Christie novel, but not the Gospel of Matthew. The story begins with a king who is giving a wedding banquet for his son. The invitations are sent out. And when the day of the banquet is at hand, the banquet hall is strangely empty. The king sends messengers out to personally invite the previously invited guests to the banquet, a friendly reminder, if you will. Still, the invited guests do not come. Once more, the king sends out messengers with a little bit of a more urgent message. I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fatted calves have been slaughtered. Everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet. Some of the invited guests made fun of the invitation and the messengers, and they went on about their daily business as if nothing at all out of the usual were taking place. Others of the invited guests rose up against the messengers, mistreated them, abused them, even killed some of them. Oh wait, we're just getting started. Things are really about to go off the rails. The king hears about all of this abuse, this murder, and apparently understands this to be the opening salvo in a rebellion. To mistreat the king's messengers is to mistreat the king. So the king sends troops to murder the murderers and burn their city to the ground. Happy wedding day. Then the king summons more messengers and says to them, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Go therefore into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet. Go to the very limits of my territory, the king says, which is what is behind the phrase, into the main streets. Go wherever I am king and issue the invitation to come and dine. This the messengers did, and they gathered whoever they found, good and bad, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, this is not where the parable ends. There's a little more, 4 more verses. But if you think this story is a little strange, the extra bit would really put you over the edge, so we'll save it for another time. As I read and reread this parable, there was one word that jumped off the page and would not let me go. The word was worthy. The wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Whatever else this parable may be about, it is about worthiness. Who is worthy to come to the table, and what makes them worthy? To the people that were first invited, they were probably what we would call the right people. Go at it this way. Imagine receiving an invitation to a royal wedding. Suppose a few years back, you went to the mailbox and there was an invitation to attend the wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton. Now, some of you I know would need to be revived at the mailbox. Others of you would be saying, why me? Why would I be receiving such an invitation? Royal invitations go to certain kinds of persons. You are either a royal of some brand yourself, or the leader of a nation, or a diplomat. These are invitations that are required because of rank and class and status. Some people just have to be invited to a royal wedding. Now, some are invited because of association. They went to college with the couple. Some are invited because they are celebrities, actors, rock stars, literary types, soccer stars, and more. These are the kinds of people you expect to see in the congregation of a royal wedding. They are the right people. But in our story, the right people said no. The right people in our story turned down the opportunity. The right people had other things to do. The right people couldn't have their schedules interrupted by this or apparently any invitation. And it was the rejection of that invitation that rendered them unworthy. They had been invited, and they turned down the opportunity. The request for their presence had been issued, and they said no. And so it was that other people were invited. The others that were invited were not the right people. They had no royal standing, no pedigree, no distinction. They had no medals on their chests. They did not own the finest fashions. The ladies did not own elegant hats or the somewhat less elegant fascinators. They were common people. They were everyday folk. They were laborers and farmers and vintners. They were women who ran households and children who played in the fields. They were not the kind of people you would see inside Westminster Abbey on a royal wedding day, but they were more like the people who gathered outside to watch the proceedings on large screen televisions. The effete were rejected. They were ushered out, and the unexceptional were ushered in. Why? Why were the worthy deemed unworthy and the unworthy welcomed as worthy? That's a hard sentence even when you're not taking medicine. There is a scene in the movie, The American President, where the President of the United States, a widower, invites a lobbyist to be his date to a state dinner. As they dance, the President's date asks him how he does it. 200 pairs of eyes are focused on you with 2 questions in their minds. Who's this girl, and why is the President dancing with her? It is then that the President responds, well, first of all, the 200 pairs of eyes are on you. And the answers are Sidney Ellen Wade, and because she said yes. what seems to make a difference between the worthy and the unworthy is a simple yes. That is because the issue begins not with the one receiving the invitation, but with the one issuing the invitation. Who is present at this table has everything to do with the one who is extending the opportunity. If those invited will not respond, the host will find others who will. Remember, this and all the Gospels are being written after Jesus' death, resurrection, and ascension. They are being written in the early days of the early church, where the main debate was whether Jesus, the messenger, came for some people or all people. Is the church to be for the Jews alone or for all people, including unworthy Gentiles? That's the background for this parable. And the answer is that Jesus Christ came into this world for all people, not just the well-positioned and well-heeled like you and me, but for all who would accept the invitation to come and dine at God's table. What makes us worthy is not who we are, but who is issuing the invitation. What makes us important and significant and worthy of a place at the table is the one who invites us, and nothing we ourselves are born with, nothing we have achieved. And this is a good place as any for us to remind ourselves that the way the invitation was issued to us is how we are to issue the invitation as well. The invitation to this table can never be because of who someone is, or what they do, or what they own, or what they could do for us, or any of the other things that seem to take center stage whenever we meet people. We are now the messengers of the parable, bearing the invitation into every place that belongs to the King's kingdom, and we are called to invite whoever will receive the invitation to take their place at the table and dine. God is the host. God is the issuer of the invitations. God is the founder of the feast. Once we get that image established, everything else will find its place. We are the invited. It is our presence that is requested at the table of God. We have been called. And now we are sent into God's world as messengers, issuing the invitation far and wide to everyone who lives on this planet of God's creation to come to the table of the Lord. Come to the welcoming and pleasant table of the Lord. Come to the wildly inclusive, all-encompassing, life-giving, life-sustaining table of God. The invitations have been sent. Take your place, for now and evermore. Amen.